Chapter 1. Transmigration, Hokage Inheritance System. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 01. Transmigration, Hokage Inheritance System. Editor notes. Uchiha clan is among one of the four noble clans of the Konoha village known for its battle prowess. Sharingan is a visual prowess specific to the Uchiha clan, which can also be called a copy ability. While using the Sharingan, the user can replicate the attack movements of his opponent. Sharingan awakens with 1 tomo, and 3 tomo indicate full maturity of the Sharingan. Chunin is one of the ranks of the shinobis or ninjas of Konoha. The beginning rank after a student is Genin, followed by Chunin, different levels of the Jonin rank, and the Kage, chief. Will of Fire is Konoha village's core ideal. Kunoichi. A term used for female practitioners of ninjutsu, female ninjas. Hokage. Chief and the highest ranked individual of the Konoha village. Konoha village. The edge of the Uchiha clan's territory. 6-year-old Uchiha Tunin was kneeling outside the door, gazing at the distant setting sun. His clothes were in a mess and full of dust. The several shoe print impressions on his back were particularly clear. Uchiha Tunin, more accurately, the soul within this body, was a transmigrator. It had already been 3 months since he transmigrated to this world. The original owner's soul might have already been absorbed or passed over to the Pure Land. The golden finger, a form of cheat that seems to accompany transmigrators in most cases, the present Uchiha Tunin awoke, was called the Legacy Inheritance System. As long as the people who acknowledged him died, he could inherit all abilities of the deceased. There were many acknowledgement types he could inherit like this, such as strength, emotion, idol, and so on. But ever since he transmigrated, the system prompted that only Tunin's parents had reached the required standard of acknowledging him. Tunin's parents were members of the Konoha police force and were considered talented. They had both awakened the 3 tomo Sharingan, a formidable visual ability inherent to the Uchiha clan. As for Tunin himself, while he had long begun practicing how to refine his chakra under the guidance of his parents, his innate talent was too weak. According to the current progress rate, the highest achievement in his lifetime would only be as a mid-ranked Chunin. Awakening the Sharingan was left to fate or a chance encounter. "Don't blame me, I also have no other way out," Tunin muttered to himself. He then lowered his head, put on a dejected look, and calmly waited for his parents to return. A while later Tunin's parents, Uchiha Yanba and Uchiha Nanako, returned home. When they had just set foot at the door, their first sight was the miserable image of their son with bruises and his messed-up garb. Nanako looked at her son with distress. However, the Uchiha clan had always been one where men had the final say, especially in context to the next generation's upbringing. She stood there quietly, waiting for her husband to speak. Uchiha Yanba frowned a little and said indifferently, "Bullied by your classmates." Tunin nodded in low spirits. Yanba then said in a stern tone, "Then train harder and beat them back. The Uchiha clan doesn't need weak people." He walked past Tunin and entered the house. Nanako reached out wanting to help her son get up, but Uchiha Yanba's angry yell from inside the house stopped her. "Leave him alone." Nanako hesitated, but she ultimately retracted her hand and headed to the kitchen to cook. Uchiha Yanba poured himself a cup of sake inside the house. "That Kakashi is too hateful," Tunin's sobbing voice could be heard from outside the door. Uchiha Yanba paused for a moment hearing this. He took a sip and said in a slightly relaxed manner, "Kakashi. Lord White Fang's son. It's expected that you are no match for him. So, you should train harder to catch up with him. Why were you fighting anyway?" Looking desolate, Tunin got up, wiped his tears with his hands, and answered aggrievedly, "Today, I said that my Lord Father and Lord Mother are the members of the police force and its pride. But right in front of me, Kakashi said that you two are cowards. You don't dare to go to the battlefield and just hide in the village bullying civilians. All the strong members of the clan have gone to the front line, only the trash chose to stay behind. I couldn't bear it, crack. Uchiha Yanba smashed the wine cup in his hand, his mood to drink had disappeared completely. He took a deep look at Uchiha Tunin, slowly got up, and walked into the bedroom. After eating food, go to the courtyard to practice your throwing techniques. Tunin nodded with tears on his face. After dinner, he came to the courtyard with several kunai, and facing the target hanging on a tree branch, he practiced as he was told. He missed all the targets. In the bedroom, Uchiha Yanba and Uchiha Nanako sat Saiza style, facing each other. The atmosphere was slightly solemn. Did you truly make up your mind? The battlefield is very dangerous. I had always felt that Tunin's poor talent has lost the Uchiha clan face. I never thought that, as his father, I was also trash in others' eyes. Tomorrow, I will report to the elders and go to the front lines. As the father, I must lead by example. I want to let Tunin know that his father is not a coward or useless. I'll go with you. Just stay at home and take care of Tunin. No, as a member of the Uchiha clan, he should also learn to be independent. As his parents spoke, Tunin was looking towards the house throwing kunai and thought to himself. I'm sorry. If you two don't die, it will be very hard for me to take the first step. Isn't the will of fire about striving for dedication? Then, you two should dedicate your lives to me. Although I'm not your son, in the future, I will sleep with many kunoichis with good genes and pass down this body's bloodline. Go on your way and accompany your son earlier. It's better to die at the hands of the enemy than to die at the hands of clansmen later. These thoughts were rather evil. He had just transmigrated a few months ago and taken over someone else's body, but he was already scheming to let the other party's parents die. How come he was increasingly becoming like a ninja? Soon afterward, he threw a kunai again, which made a beautiful parabola in the air and fell to the ground. Missed the target again. In the bedroom, Uchiha Yanba heard the continuous sounds of the kunai falling, each thump increasing his determination to go to the battlefield. The next day. Ninja Academy. Today marked the end of the mid-year term. All students had to take the half-term examination scheduled for the afternoon. In the morning, the academy students assembled on the training ground, where Lord Hokage was to preach about the will of fire. Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen stood on the platform and glanced at the students below. He cleared his throat and began his address. Just after saying a few words, though, Sarutobi Hiruzen noticed something was amiss. Most of the students looked at him with admiration. However, a first-grade student was casting a confused look at him. The Hokage frowned. After thinking for a bit, however, he did not find anything wrong with what he just said. Perhaps, this child's comprehension power is too low to understand this. He stopped paying more attention to the matter and proceeded with his speech. Halfway through, though, he suddenly noticed that the doubt in that student's eyes had disappeared. Moreover, it had turned into a look of sudden realization. Hiruzen nodded in his heart. Very good, it seems this boy is listening sincerely. His voice became a bit louder. By the end of his speech, Uchiha Tunin's countenance had indeed changed into deep admiration, just like everyone else. But Hiruzen could see that Tunin's look was different from others. The other people admired his identity, but Tunin was truly convinced by the principle he just preached. Thinking of this, made Sarutobi Hiruzen nod in satisfaction. This boy will become a useful tool in the future. After completing his speech, Sarutobi Hiruzen left with all students bidding him farewell. Just before leaving, he gave Tunin a meaningful look. Seeing this, the young Uchiha immediately trembled with excitement. Later at noon, Tunin returned home. As expected, the house was already empty, leaving just a tableful of meals and a note. The handwriting on the note was neat and pretty. It was obviously written by his mother. The note more or less explained that the two had already set out towards the battlefield, and they hoped that he would take care of himself. Study hard, train hard and strive to become a powerful ninja in the future. Enough money was left in the bedroom, but they still hoped that Uchiha Tunin wouldn't be wasteful and so on. Everything needing attention was written. Just the last line showed Uchiha Yanba's tone. In the Uchiha clan, there are no cowards or trash. After reading the note, Uchiha Tunin sighed and stored the note. Have a good trip. Don't return alive. Chapter 2. Diary Writing, Books Purchase. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 02. Diary Writing, Books Purchase. Editor's Notes. Konoha's will of fire alludes to the ideology that love and loyalty are above all else. Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, the third Hokage, is also called Lord Sandaime. Similarly, Lord Shodaime and Lord Nidaime are titles used for Konoha's first and second chiefs. Umbu, short for Ansatsu Senjutsu Takushu Butai, is a special assassination and tactical squad made of capable ninjas that are dispatched by the village leader. Hokage, Taijutsu and Ninjutsu are both fight techniques. Taijutsu specifically refers to physical combat and fight skills while Ninjutsu refers to ninja techniques. Uchiha Tunin walked into the bedroom, took out a diary, and began writing. July 1st. Today in school, Lord Sandaime delivered a speech about the will of fire. In the beginning, I didn't understand it very well. But because of his simple explanation, it gradually made sense. I have summarized it below. 3,000 words omitted. Oh, that's right, today, father and mother left behind a note saying they went to the battlefield. I wish them the very best. Tunin shut the diary after making the entry and placed it in a conspicuous place. This journal would be very useful in the future. He was not sure whether Nanako and Yanba would die on the battlefield. Even if they did, he needed to make more plans, and that would involve risk. The next day, he headed to the largest bookstore in Konoha. The store's owner was a bespectacled old man. Upon seeing Tunin walk in, the owner greeted him with a warm smile. Welcome, young Uchiha, what do you need? Hello, I want to buy books on ninjas, the more the better. I think you should go to the Ninja Academy. Our bookstore is not allowed to sell books on ninja techniques. We have several titles that ninjas need to pay attention to as well as books on spying, assassination, and so on. But these are not suitable for you. As long as it's a book on ninjas, I want them all. Tunin's objective this time was exactly these books. The store owner stroked his chin and remarked with delight, want them all. Alright, it's a deal. But this is a no-return, no-refund purchase. In the face of making a quick buck, the store owner ignored his conscience of selling inappropriate reading material to a young boy and fetched out several books, putting them into a bag. There are many good storybooks here as well. Do you want them? Since he came across a rare foolish spendthrift, the owner wanted to milk the opportunity for all it's worth. Are there any books on the Hokage? Tunin calmly asked. There are. This is a book about Lord Shodaime, this one is on Lord Nidaime, and this is about Lord Sandaime. Also, Sandaime personally signed this book, Will of Fire. Do you want a copy? I want them all. Tunin walked out of the bookstore hauling a large bag of books on his back. The elated bookstore owner was waving his hands at him, thank you for your patronage. You will become a great ninja one day. He made a big profit. After he returned home, Tunin sorted the books into different categories. He placed the book, Will of Fire, on the table and the books on the Hokage's achievements on his bedside. He kept behind one more book on ninja techniques and placed the rest in the cupboard. Once all was in order, he opened the book titled Trap Deployment Manual, and began reading it carefully. In this dangerous ninja world, one must learn first to survive. Konoha was relatively peaceful right now, but it was wise to be cautious. The first step right now was choosing the right team. Otherwise, it would be easy to fall into permanent slumber. The correct choice for Tunin was to firmly latch on to Sarutobi Hiruzen's side. This meant he would have to use various ways to express his feelings and expound his loyalty. The ninja profession entailed high attack and low defense, similar to assassins. Regardless of how extraordinary one's output was, a single stab in the neck was enough to end a life. Therefore, taking advantage of the current time to learn entrapment tricks might prove useful even if it was not worthwhile. Since Tunin belonged to the children left behind, those whose parents were on the front line, the elders would often come to express sympathy. But the moment someone entered the room, it was hard to miss the copy of the Will of Fire lying on the table. Most would angrily rebuke him and leave in a huff. Even the more tolerant Uchiha clan members severely admonished Tunin, seeing the various books on the previous Hokages. Regardless of how others persuaded him, Tunin's eyes were filled with stubbornness. "You should not speak like this about the Lord Hokage. Tunin, you are a member of the Uchiha clan, you must give the highest priority to your clan." Compared to the other Uchihas, this senior clan member was considered gentle. But looking at the unshakable Tunin, he too turned away with a snort. The incident prompted Tunin to write in his diary again. "I don't understand why the clan members cannot understand the Will of Fire. Have they even read this book? Perhaps, Lord Sandame's thoughts are too high or the clan members' hearts are too shallow. As long as they calm down and carefully read and understand it, they will know just how advanced Lord Sandame's thoughts are in governing the village. After reading for the past few days, I have summarized the basic points I have learned from the 3 Lord Hokages as well. Lord Shodame teaches that we must learn to unite. Lord Nidame's achievements show that we must learn to exert ourselves. As for Lord Sandame, his approach is that we must learn to protect. These 3 points influence me deeply. I have benefited especially from Lord Sandame's conviction to protect. I have decided to strengthen my beliefs, ignore rumors, protect Konoha as my duty and pledge my life to follow in Lord Sandame's steps. With Lord Sandame's will. Omitted 8,000 words. By the way, my mother sent me a letter today, asking me to take care of myself. I will obey her. Fortunately, it was against Uchiha principles to rummage through other people's belongings. If they were to see this diary's content, they might use the great fireball technique to burn Tunin alive. The Uchihas did seem to have lower standards in gossiping though. Especially when they came across things they deemed disdainful, they would spread it far and wide. After fermenting for a few days, Tunin's matter spread through the entire clan. That imp of Yanba stays at home all day long, reading Sandame's Will of Fire. Useless imp. He doesn't realize strength is everything. I heard that imp was ranked bottom in the Ninja Academy's half-term examination, just like Obito. Those 2 dishonor our clan's glory. I want to ask the elders to expel this kid from the clan. The elders won't agree. After all, both his parents are fighting on the battlefield. When his parents return, I will personally go and ask them how they raised that imp. Yanba has been a Chunin all these years, and Nanako is the same. They are nothing but trash, who gave birth to trash. Don't say that. If the elders hear it, they will punish you. These whispers eventually reached Hiruzen's ears through the umbu. In the Hokage's office, after listening to a report on the Uchiha clan, Hiruzen blew out a smoke ring and said, "Uchiha Tunin." It turned out to be that child. He truly is perceptive. Hiruzen retrieved the Ninja Academy examination results from a drawer. This child is very good in some subjects but very poor in others. On his report card, Tunin's theoretical knowledge ranked first but he was at the bottom in taijutsu and ninjutsu. Uchiha Obito was the worst in the overall score because he got a 0 in theoretical knowledge. In taijutsu, though, he was slightly better than Tunin. It's a pity, Hiruzen shook his head, and placed the report cards back, no longer paying any attention to Tunin. A useless person without strength was at most a mere loyal civilian. His value in the future would be nothing more than cheering for the Hokage from the sidelines. Chapter 3. Looking for a target, gaining acknowledgement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 03. Looking for a target, gaining acknowledgement. Editor's notes. Acknowledgement is the attribute of the legacy inheritance system that the main character, Uchiha Tunen, awakened when he crossed over to the Naruto world. Once a person that acknowledges him dies, Tunen will inherit all his or her abilities. There are 6 ranks in jutsu, techniques. E. Rank, fundamental level, D. Rank, genin level, C. Rank, chunin, B. Rank, jonin, A. Rank, kage or jonin, and S. Rank, secret or extreme level. Time flew by, and the holidays were over in the blink of an eye. Uchiha Tunen had learned a lot about trapping, assassination, camouflage, and poisoning techniques by now. So far, the system did not send him any alerts, implying that his parents were still alive. 2 Chunin cannon fodders, how come their lives were so firm? Tunen was vexed. He couldn't simply sit still and wait for their deaths. It was clear which political side he had to stand on. The next step was to show his value. If he wanted to be stronger, he could only gain acknowledgement and then kill that person. However, in a head-on battle, he couldn't even defeat Obito, the lowest ranked at the Ninja Academy. The only remaining way was to covertly assassinate. As for the ideal target, that would be someone who was not too strong or too weak, and it would be best if the person had no clue about ninja assassination techniques. In short, he could only start with the students at the academy. Tunen was a first-year student. His target pool was the second or third-year students. Anyone who scored high in strength but low in intellect would be optimal. With strength, after inheriting the person's ability, he could be outstanding among his peers. As for why weak in intellect, because that would make it easier to kill that person. The plan was divided into 3 steps. Gain acknowledgement, assassinate, deal with the aftermath. He must not make any errors in any of these steps. Gaining acknowledgement was a prerequisite for inheriting abilities. The assassination process was as good or bad as his plan. As for dealing with the aftermath, that could be troublesome. If the Umbu were alarmed, then with Tunen's limited resources, it would be very hard to run or hide. Thinking of this, Tunen's eyes flashed with pallid light. The Ninja Academy opened the next day. This time, Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't deliver any speech. It seemed that the war on the front line had fallen into a stalemate. During the recess, Tunen quietly left his classroom and headed to the third-year classroom. Tianxiong-san, Tunen waved his hand at Uchiha Tianxiong, looking excited. Tianxiong was a third-year student, who ranked 6th overall in the academy. The first ranker was also from the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Zhou. Hearing his name being called out, Tianxiong looked over and was a little surprised. At a glance, he recognized Tunen, the trash that the clan members had been talking about. He ignored him but couldn't do so for long. Due to Tunen's continuous calling, Tianxiong had to walk out of the classroom. He coldly asked, "Little imp, why are you looking for me? I heard that Tianxiong-san is the #1 genius among the graduates. Can I train with you?" "Oh." Tianxiong responded indifferently, but the corners of his mouth rose slightly. This pleased him very much. After thinking for a bit, he casually remarked, "Zhou's grade is the highest. I am just 6th. Why don't you look for him?" Looking confused, Tunen said, "Isn't Zhou-san's overall grade good because of his high scores in the theory exams? Your vision is unique. For a ninja, strength is the key. I don't bother with those theory classes. I train in the clan's northern training ground every day. If you want to come, you can come. If I have time, I will give you some pointers." After speaking, Tianxiong put his hands in his pockets and returned to the classroom without looking back. As for Tunen, he cheered and ran back to the first-year classroom, completely exhibiting a child's demeanor. In the third-year classroom, Tianxiong had just returned to his seat, when Zhou turned around and said to him lightly, "Tianxiong, don't interact with that trash. He is the clan's scourge." Who are you to care about my matters? Tianxiong snapped. Humph. Zhou reciprocated in equal terms and turned back. As soon as school was over, Tunan came to the clan's northern training ground. As expected, Tianxiong was practicing the fire style technique here. Fire style, great fireball technique. Boom. A blazing fireball was released from his mouth and smashed into the pond next to the training ground. Wow, amazing, Tunan stood there in shock. Tianxiong turned his back to Tunan and smiled. He had already noticed Tunan's arrival. The great fireball technique was purely a show. Off. Little imp, you came, Tianxiong turned around and said indifferently. Tianxiong.san is so amazing. You can actually expel such a big fireball. Tunan spread his hands and drew a big circle in the air. It's just a C.rank fire. Style jutsu. Tianxiong was pleased with Tunan's reaction. He pointed to a wooden stake and said, your physique is too weak. Begin with taijutsu training first. Okay, Tianxiong.san, Tunan walked in front of the wooden stake, looking excited, and began to hit it earnestly. His taijutsu was indeed too poor. Tianxiong couldn't help giving pointers time and again, but the result was still unsatisfactory. Practicing till sunset, Tunan sat on the ground, panting. He was exhausted. Tianxiong too was very tired, but he kept a cool look to maintain his image. With his hands stuck in his pockets, he stood in front of Tunan and said with disdain, barely started training and you are already like this. Tunan looked dejected. He buried his head between his legs and said, I'm sorry, I disappointed Tianxiong.san. I have heard about you from the other clan members. Why do you have those foolish thoughts? Tianxiong asked. Hearing this question, Tunan lowered his head deeper and said in a sad voice, because I am trash, my father and mother do not like me, and the clan members spurn me. Only Lord Sandame would smile at me. I feel that Lord Sandame truly loves the village and loves us. So, this turned out to be the reason. The soul of the weak instinctively needed to depend on the strong. Tianxiong immediately understood. His tone was no longer too indifferent, and he said, in the future, you must attach most importance to the clan. Otherwise, I will not teach you. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Tunan stood up and bowed deeply to Tianxiong. Tianxiong could hear the polite refusal in Tunan's words, and a hint of anger appeared in his eyes. He turned around and said, go away. I'm sorry, Tunan apologized again. He took out a book from his pocket and handed it over. This is my gift to Tianxiong.san. Thank you for your guidance in training me. Hearing Tunan's words, Tianxiong turned back, and with his gaze focused on the book, he coldly asked, what's this? Tunan sincerely answered, during the vacation, I read the theory courses from the higher grade curriculum. I have written down some important points that could be useful in the examination. I hope that Tianxiong.san will truly become the #1 graduate. Tianxiong fell into a daze hearing this. When all was said and done, most of the Uchihas were arrogant. They would never easily convey their feelings. Therefore, most Uchiha clan members had never received gifts. Tianxiong was no exception. Seeing the notes painstakingly put together by a junior schoolmate, his heart involuntarily trembled. He seized the book. Slanting his head to one side like a tsundere, he said, humph. Remember to come early tomorrow. After speaking, he walked towards the clan. Ding! Gained the acknowledgement of Uchiha Tianxiong. Hearing the system's prompt, Tunan was overjoyed. He waved his hand towards Tianxiong's retreating back, and said, thank you, Tianxiong.san, I will work harder. Chapter 4. Shifting Calamity to the East, Awakening Visual Power. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 04. Shifting Calamity to the East, Awakening Visual Power. Editor's notes. Chakra is a substance native to lifeforms on some planets, internal energy. Usually, the higher the chakra, the stronger the warrior. Uchiha Tianxiong returned home and shut himself in his bedroom. He opened the book Uchiha Tunin gifted him impatiently. The key points of the theory lessons were all in there, and they were all summarized. Tianxiong, who usually didn't listen to the theory classes, could easily understand these. He touched the rough page and muttered, "This book's paper quality is truly poor." Flipping through the pages, he noticed two were stuck together. Tianxiong licked his finger to moisten it and rubbed the pages apart to continue browsing through it. On the other side, Tunin, who had also returned home, headed straight into the kitchen. He opened the lid of a pot that had a transparent liquid in it and turned on the cooking stove. As the pot heated up, the liquid gradually evaporated and Tunin looked at it with a wooden expression. In this weather, it should take about 3 days to evaporate naturally. But that's too long. It needs a slight nudge. Tunin narrowed his eyes slightly, as he turned off the fire, and washed the pot several times before filling it up with water and putting it back on the stove. He opened the refrigerator to select from various vegetables and different kinds of edible weeds to pick out what would be his dinner tonight. In the past few days, his food comprised only these vegetables and weeds. Tianxiong woke up the next day with an unbearable headache. Did I not get enough sleep? Could it be because I stayed up too late reading? After contemplating for a bit, he planned to continue sleeping. It didn't matter if he missed a day of class. In any case, there weren't many newer things for the graduates to learn. In the evening, he dragged his tired body to the clan's northern training ground. Yesterday, he had promised that little imp to guide him in his training today. The Uchihas always abide by their promise. Cough, cough, Tianxiong sat on the meadow, looking around in confusion. That little imp hasn't come yet. Perhaps, the class teacher dragged out the lesson. On the other side, in the clan's northwest training ground, Uchiha Zhou had been training hard since noon. Suddenly, he heard a movement behind him and immediately stopped to look back. He saw Tunin standing there puzzled, and looking around as if he was lost. "Little imp, why did you come here?" Zhou asked indifferently. Tunin seemed to be frightened by his expression, and said weakly, "I'm looking for Tianxiong-san. He's not here, get lost." Tunin turned around to leave, but at the same time, he "sked" in a low voice. Zhou heard it loud and clear and retorted, "Little imp, do you want to die?" Tunin trembled and said in a quivering voice, "Why are you so aggressive? Since you cannot defeat Tianxiong-san, are you targeting me to vent your anger?" Zhou smiled, looked down at Tunin, and said, "Do you think I can't defeat him? Tianxiong-san has already told me that only your theory exams grades are high. In terms of actual strength, you are no match for him. He said that to you?" "Humph." Tunin snorted as if he had vented his anger. He turned around and ran away. Zhou's complexion, on the other hand, had become completely gloomy. In the northern training ground, Tianxiong had just finished doing warm-up exercises. However, he felt that his entire body was aching and weak. "It looks like I have fallen ill. Did I catch a cold because I stayed up late?" Tianxiong-san, in the distance, Tunin called out as he ran over. A smile appeared on Tianxiong's face, but he quickly hid it. He looked at the panting Tunin, and coolly said, "You are late. Just now, I went to the wrong training ground, sorry for making you wait for so long." Tunin bowed respectfully. Swish! A kunai fell from the sky and stuck in the ground in front of Tianxiong. "Who is there?" Tianxiong shouted, looking up at a tree. Tianxiong-kun, usually, I don't like to deal with you, but that doesn't mean you can provoke me. On a big tree's branch, Zhou's figure became visible. He assumed a domineering position and looked at Tianxiong condescendingly. His arrogance was apparent. "Let's duel, let me see your recent progress." Zhou jumped down and attacked Tianxiong with a kunai. "Damn it!" Tianxiong cursed inwardly and raised a kunai in his hand to block. Clang! Tianxiong felt a powerful impact, and couldn't help taking a few steps back before he could stop. If I hadn't been sick, how could you be so arrogant? Tianqiong's forehead was covered in sweat. He raised his head and glared at Zhou. Swish, swish, swish. Several kunai were thrown, they collided midair and changed the trajectory, which affected Zhou's judgment. Ding, ding, ding. However, the scene before his eyes stunned Tianqiong. He saw Zhou maneuvering the kunai, perfectly blocking his attacks, one after the other. I haven't even activated the Sharingan. In my eyes, you are also just trash. Zhou showed his 1.Tomo Sharingan, and a victor's smile appeared on his face. At the same time, he slightly moved his gaze and looked at Tunan, who had been standing there stunned. Tunan's eyes were filled with worry, disbelief, and a hint of disappointment. Tianqiong also noticed Tunan's expression, and his heart thumped. A desperate feeling rose from the bottom of his heart. I'm not trash, I'm not trash. Sharingan, so what? Tianqiong roared. His eyes had turned blood-red with a single tomo spinning rapidly in it, as he simultaneously made hand signs. Oh! Awakened, Zhou was slightly startled, noticing that Tianqiong was preparing to release the great fireball. The corners of his mouth slightly rose, and his hands also became illusory, forming hand signs. Fire style, great fireball technique. Fire style, great fireball technique. The two young Uchihas shouted out at once. However, just at the critical moment, Tianqiong felt a severe burst of pain and the chakra flow in his body suddenly stagnated. Boom! A huge fireball expelled from Zhou's mouth and engulfed his vision. Damn it! Tianqiong's complexion was hideous. He wanted to dodge, but he discovered that his heart was in unbearable pain as if thousands of ants were biting it, and he felt as if the sky and earth were spinning. He lost consciousness. The fireball seemed to hit something, and there was a sound of something heavy falling on the ground. Substitution technique. Where is he? Zhou frowned looking at the burning torch on the ground. He looked all around to search for his opponent. Not there. Not there either. Suddenly, Zhou smelled burning flesh and his heart skipped a beat. Murder! Tunan screamed and ran towards the clan. Impossible, how can he die so easily? Zhou couldn't believe it. He was clear about Tianqiong's strength. In a fight without using the Sharingan, he just had a 50% chance of winning, not to mention Tianqiong too had awakened his Sharingan today. How can he be so weak today? Could it be that I'm too strong? No, it was more likely that he made a mistake while doing the hand signs, and failed to release the fireball. And he was so clumsy that he forgot to dodge. That was the only possibility. Zhou suddenly recalled the Umbu's terror, and the clan's strict rules and trembled. I must not let this matter spread. I'll die if that happens. Zhou viciously looked at Tunan, who was running towards the clan, and immediately raised a kunai to attack him at full speed. At this moment, the fleeing Tunan felt power welling up within his body, and he slightly narrowed his eyes. He had a hunch what this sensation was. In the very next moment, his eyes had turned blood-red and a tomo slowly spun around the black pupils. This power was addictive. How can this little imp run so fast? Zhou muttered with an ugly face. Tunan was about to reach the clan but Zhou couldn't let that happen. His Sharingan spun at full speed, and he made hand signs while running. Tunan, who was fleeing for his life, sensed his attacker's movements, and his hands also became illusory, beginning to make hand signs. As soon as it was completed, Tunan turned around and yelled, "Fire style, great fireball technique." X2 Zhou vaguely saw a 1.Tomo Sharingan in Tunan's eyes. The worst was that the fireball released by the so-called trash nearly rivaled the one he had released. What? Boom! The two fireballs collided, blocking Zhou's vision, and in the next instant, several kunai pierced through the flames headed right at him. These kunai clashed with each other midair, changing their trajectory and compromising Zhou's judgment. Damn it, is this little imp really using Tianxiong's move? And he is even better at it than him. Zhou had no time to dodge. He could only raise the kunai in his hand to block the strike. However, at this time, a kunai appeared from his blind spot and gashed his thigh. I'm injured. How's this possible? Is there such a skilled person in the world? Zhou endured the pain and looked at Tunin, who was standing on a branch, in disbelief. Tunin too was looking at him with an indifferent expression. Tunin looked down, and said, Zhou-san, I never thought that after seeing Tianxiong-san awaken his Sharingan, you would be so afraid of him catching up to you that you would kill him. Did you know he was like a brother to me? Now that I have awakened the Sharingan, I will personally avenge Tianxiong-san. Tunin put the serious charge on Zhou's head at the first chance he got. Zhou also thought that he had killed Tianxiong. And as an Uchiha, he disdained to resort to sophistry. He said coldly, little imp, even if I have accidentally killed Tianxiong, only clan elders can judge me. In my eyes, you are still a nobody. Tunin slowly raised a kunai, pointed at Zhou, and said, a first-year student like me is definitely not Zhou-san's opponent, but Tianxiong-san is someone I cherish. I will spare no effort to avenge him even if it brings certain death. In the next moment, the tomo in Tunin's eyes spun, and he jumped to attack Zhou. Ding, ding, ding. Zhou's mobility was affected by his thigh injury. He could only stand in the same place and resist head-on. Tunin's attacks were fruitless, so he retreated a couple of steps. But then a white mist rose and 3 Tunins jumped out, rushing towards Zhou from different directions. Clone technique. Which one is the real body? The tomo in Zhou's eyes spun as he looked with fixed attention. Not this one. There is a shadow on the ground. Someone is above. Zhou suddenly looked up and saw that a figure had already jumped high into the air. Moreover, the other party's hands were making hand signs rapidly. So, this was his plan. He wanted to use 3 clones to distract me, and then use the great fireball to burn me to death. Little imp, your tricks are too na.ve, Zhou grinned hideously and yelled while his hands made hand signs even faster. Fire style, great fireball, puff. A kunai deeply stabbed into Zhou's abdomen. Zhou looked at Tunin in shock and slowly knelt on the ground. Enough. A deep voice resounded. The Uchiha clan's great elder and a group of clan members surrounded Tunin and Zhou. The great elder noticed Tunin spinning 1. Tomo Sharingan and a tinge of praise flashed through his eyes. He asked in a deep voice, what happened? Ednel.co Tunin's expression seemed to suddenly change. First, he looked confused, then he seemed to remember something, and looked alarmed, full of grief and indignation. Finally, as if he seemed to have found someone to rely on again, with eyes filled with tears and a face full of grief, he whispered, Tianxiong San. With that, he fainted. Chapter 5. Zhou's execution, scheming against White Fang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 05. Zhou's execution, scheming against White Fang. The clan elders had in fact already arrived at the scene when Uchiha Tunin released the great fireball technique. From all the signs on the scene and the conversation between Tunin and Uchiha Zhou, the elders more or less understood the course of events. However, Zhou, after all, was a clan member. They needed to investigate things carefully before drawing any conclusion. Therefore, the great elder instructed Zhou to be treated and imprisoned in the ancestral hall, where he would personally question him. Tunin had stayed behind and fought against Zhou because he guessed the clan members were already at the scene. After all, they were still within the Uchiha territory, and he did shout out his lungs in the very beginning. He had done everything to push the crime on Zhou. In the dim ancestral hall, the great elder sat on a seat looking down at the kneeling Zhou and said, do you admit that you unintentionally killed Tianxiong? Zhou gritted his teeth. His heart was full of grievances, but the Uchihas never expressed their protests. He could only angrily say, who would have thought that that trash was so useless, and would make an error while releasing a mere C-ranked ninjutsu. According to what you said, Tianxiong had awakened the Sharingan. Do you know how precious Sharingan is for the Uchiha clan? And you even wanted to kill Tunin to silence the witness, didn't you? Speak up. Is this true or not? I did. He is just 6 years old and he has already awakened the Sharingan. He is a genius of the clan. He has more potential than both you and Tianxiong. Zhou was unconvinced. He replied, that's because he saw Tianxiong's death that stimulated him into awakening the Sharingan. Though I don't know why he had such a deep relationship with Tianxiong. The great elder looked gloomy as he got up and walked out of the ancestral hall. Among the 2 geniuses who awakened the Sharingan, you killed one and tried your best to kill the other. The first time might be accidental, but the second time, you wanted to kill your clansman deliberately. In a few days, the investigation will be completed, and you will be executed in front of the clan members. Although Zhou had already admitted it, anything could happen in the ninja world. At this moment, in the Hokage office, an Umbu suddenly appeared in front of Sarutobi Hiruzen. Reporting to Hokage, there's a murder case in the Uchiha clan. What happened? Hiruzen blew out a smoke ring and listened to Umbu's report while dealing with the documents. It is suspected that 2 Uchiha students had a conflict, and one accidentally killed the other. Upon hearing the names of the 2 people, Hiruzen paused and said, both Tianxiong and Zhou were about to graduate. It's a pity. He continued dealing with the documents. Obviously, these 2 geniuses meant nothing in his eyes. More importantly, they were from the Uchiha clan. There was also another Uchiha, named Uchiha Tunin, a first-year student, present on the scene. It is suspected that he had a very good relationship with the murdered Uchiha. On witnessing his death, he awakened 1. Tomo Sharingan, and he used the Great Fireball technique to fight against Zhou. Moreover, they were equally matched. Oh. Tunin, I didn't expect him to be a genius. Alright, you can withdraw. After the Umbu left, Hiruzen put down the documents and narrowed his eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. The next day, Tunin woke up from the bed and saw the great elder warmly smiling at him. You are awake. Tunin nodded, and as if he suddenly recalled something, he asked anxiously, what about Tianxiong-san? An inexplicable look flashed through the great elder's eyes. He lightly patted Tunin's hand and said, don't dwell on the past. This old man's eyes are very accurate, and I can see that you are a very capable child. Remember, the clan will never harm or exploit you. After comforting Tunin, the great elder got up to leave. But when he reached the door, he said, by the way, I will implement the family law tonight and execute Zhou in front of everyone. I have already asked someone to request a leave for you from the academy, so you can rest at home. After speaking, he left without looking back. In the bedroom, Tunin curled up in the bed looking downcast, his thoughts undecipherable. A while later, a white pigeon landed on the windowsill and quietly eyed Tunin. The boy took out a special feed from his pocket and held it to the bird, who pecked on it and left, perfectly satisfied. This white pigeon was a lookout ninja beast that Tunin trained according to the methods written in the Ninja Beast Training Record. It assisted Tunin to watch out for someone tailing or keeping an eye on him. In fact, this kind of ninja beast was truly ordinary. Tunin only needed to use special illusions on it to make it recognize him as the master and feed it often. The white pigeon symbolized peace. Tunin preferred it to crows. The latter, he thought, would make people know he was a bad person at a glance. A conniving hunter must don the right camouflage before revealing the fangs. Tunin didn't attend the public sentence execution at night but stayed home to write in his diary. Tianxiong-san died. Zhou killed him. I'm very sad. Suddenly, I remembered what Lord Sandame said before. 13,000 words omitted here. Tonight, Great Elder will execute Chiwu.san in front of everyone. I hope Tianxiong.san's soul can rest in peace. After closing the diary, Tunin went to the kitchen and stared at the remaining vegetables and weeds in the refrigerator. He took out all the remaining weeds and put them in a pot to cook. That night, Tunin made a run for the bathroom over a dozen times, much as per his plan. He almost collapsed. Early the next morning, he sorted his belongings and went to the ninja academy, maintaining the abandoned look. On the way to the academy, the Uchiha clan members no longer looked at him with contempt. Instead, they had goodwill in their eyes. Was this the change brought about by a person's potential? After he arrived at the academy, Yumano Naoto saw his haggard look and assumed that he was grieving. He didn't ask any questions, and just patted Tunin's shoulder lightly when he entered the classroom. In the morning's theory class, Tunin kept his head on the table the whole time, with a lost look. He may appear grief-stricken, but little did onlookers know that Tunin was already thinking about his next plan. The lives of his parents were a bit tough. Even at their Chunin level, they survived for so long. Now that he had strength, Tunin couldn't put all the eggs in one basket. The Naruto plot began to unfold in his mind as he started thinking about the short-lived characters. Suddenly, a name appeared in Tunin's mind, Konoha's white fang, Hatake Sakumo. Kakashi was still a first-year student. But according to the plot, Kakashi should graduate in a year. In other words, Sakumo would commit suicide within the next year. Perhaps, he could grasp a big one. Since Sakumo was certain to die, he just needed to gain timely acknowledgement. There were various kinds of acknowledgements. The emotional acknowledgement was impossible in this case. After all, Sakumo was neither his relative nor friend. Strength acknowledgement would be even more difficult. Even if his parents died immediately, his strength wouldn't reach the required standard. That left only the belief acknowledgement. Perhaps, he could carefully plan and prepare. As long as he succeeded, it would ensure he would have the strength to survive for the next 20 years. During the recess, Uchiha Obito ran over to Tunin's desk and poked his arm. "Hello, hello." Tunin raised his head. There were still tear stains on his cheeks. "I heard about what happened from the clan members." "Don't be sad," Obito scratched his head and said awkwardly. Tunin nodded weakly and buried his head in his arms again. Obito smiled awkwardly and said, "Don't worry, Tianxiong.san is not here, but I, the future Hokage, will guide you in your training." Uchiha Tunin said softly, "Thank you, Binov." Obito smiled and returned to his seat. "Obito, what's going on, tell me." "Yes, why is Tunin crying like that?" "Did his parents, a clan member who had a good relationship with Tunin, passed away?" "He was a ninja academy's graduate, Uchiha Tianxiong." Under the gentle offense of a crowd of girls, Obito laid down his arms. Combat class in the afternoon. With Naoto at the lead, the students assembled in the training ground. Today, it's 1.2.1 combat training. You can choose your opponent. Everyone must participate. The one who wins first place will get extra credit at the end of the term. Tunin, do you need to rest it out for a bit? Following Naoto's gaze, everyone looked at Tunin, who had his head lowered the entire time. Tunin shook his head, then slowly raised his head, revealing the 1.Tomo Sharingan. He firmly said, "No need, Teacher Naoto, I have already pulled myself together. I will carry forward Tianxiong.san's last wish and become an outstanding ninja." After experiencing emotional turmoil, Tunin awakened the Sharingan. It seems that the child was dealt a huge blow. But being able to pull himself together so quickly indicated that his psychological strength was commendable. An understanding smile appeared on Naoto's face as he said, "In that case, today, you can choose your opponent first." "I'm here." Among the crowd, Obito raised his hand high, "Challenge me." Tunin's gaze moved among the crowd, passing over Obito who had recommended himself and stopped on a white-haired youth. He placed his hands on his knees, bowed deeply to the person, and said, "Kakashi, I look forward to your advice." Chapter 6. Battle Between Geniuses, Umbu Investigation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 06. Battle Between Geniuses, Umbu Investigation. Notes. Dojitsu, literally eye techniques, refer to visual jutsu or ninja abilities that utilize the eyes. From within the crowd, a languid-looking Kakashi slightly raised his eyebrows and stepped forward reluctantly. In Kakashi's opinion, even though Uchiha Tonen awakened the one-tomo Sharingan, it was just one more dojitsu. Judging from the past combat classes, Tonen basically had zero combat experience. He couldn't be Kakashi's opponent in any aspect. Everyone present on the scene, including Yumino Naoto, thought so. "Did you think it through? You have just awakened the Sharingan," Naoto asked. In fact, in Naoto's view, the most suitable person to practice with Tonen was Uchiha Obito. Tonen's physical constitution was always weak. He also didn't know any ninjutsu. The one-tomo Sharingan, at best, would give him an extra dynamic vision. At least, Obito's physical constitution was not bad, and they two should match evenly in a fight. Naturally, with Tonen's potential, he might have some chance to catch up with Kakashi in the future, but that definitely was not now. Naoto was a little worried that Tonen, who had just pulled himself together, would be abused by Kakashi and would end up losing his confidence again. "Teacher, you can rest assured. Tenno-san taught me often. In the past, I was unable to perform well, but now, I can." Tonen cast all doubts that anyone may feel to the dead Tenno in advance. In the Hokage office, Sarutobi Hiruzen was dealing with official documents while blowing out smoke rings. He seemed to suddenly think of something and took out the Ninja Academy report cards from his drawer again. Awakened Sharingan. Hiruzen squinted his eyes and recalled that this afternoon's class for the first-year student was combat training. He put the report cards back in the drawer and looked at a crystal ball in front of him. Hiruzen injected his chakra into it, and instantly a visual of the training ground appeared. At this moment, Kakashi and Tonen walked out from the crowd and made a hand sign to each other. The next second, swish, Kakashi raised his fist and rushed towards Tonen at shocking speed. He planned to knock his challenger down in one punch and quickly end this meaningless fight. However, just before Kakashi's fist could make contact, Tonen tilted his head slightly, and at the same time, lifted his leg to kick Kakashi's abdomen. Bang! Kakashi's overlapped palms blocked Tonen's kick, and he retreated, opening up a distance between them. It was just one move, but it was enough to change Kakashi's thoughts about Tonen. The contempt in his eyes was gone. "Wow, they are so fast that I couldn't even clearly see what happened. How did Tonen block it? Is Sharingan so powerful?" Standing in combat readiness, Kakashi took out several shurikens from the ninja tool bag and threw them at Tonen. Ding, ding, ding. The shurikens collided with each other, continuously changing their path, making it difficult for Tonen to gauge the attack. Despite this, he held a kunai and rushed towards Kakashi, moving deftly along the way, dodging all shurikens one after another. Kakashi's expression remained unchanged. He held a kunai with his right hand and slightly squatted down. Just when Tonen arrived in front of him and slashed down at him with his kunai, Kakashi made an unexpected move. He ignored Tonen in front of him, turned around, and thrust the kunai up from the bottom. Clang! The two kunai locked onto each other. What? Several sounds of disbelief erupted from the crowd. Tonen had appeared behind Kakashi at some point and wanted to attack him, but Kakashi managed to block it. The kunai in Tonen's hand, which was about to strike Kakashi from the front, turned into white smoke as soon as it touched him, leaving behind a piece of wood on the ground. Seeing this, Naoto's eyes were filled with surprise, and he exclaimed, "Clone technique, combined with substitution technique to switch position. And using transformation technique at the same time to make the substitute that would appear like a kunai. This is already comparable to the top-level graduate students. After Tonen's attack failed, he distanced himself from Kakashi, and his hands immediately turned into afterimages as he began to make hand signs. Kakashi naturally wouldn't give Tonen a chance to release ninjutsu. He threw several shurikens, and then, he too began to make hand signs. Tonen's expression remained the same, and he continued making hand seals. His Sharingan could clearly see the shuriken's trajectory. His legs remained steady, and his body and head swayed continuously, perfectly dodging all attacks. Fire style, great fireball technique. He released a scorching hot fireball towards Kakashi. At this moment, Kakashi also finished making the seals and slammed his hands on the ground. Earth style, mud wall technique. The fireball hit the mud wall, but it was unable to breach it. Tonen's body swayed as he pretended to have depleted his chakra. He just barely managed to jump up, dodging a hand that came out from the ground. Seeing his sneak attack fail, Kakashi also came out from the ground. Genius. I didn't expect Tonen to be a genius as well. It's truly a pleasant surprise. Hiruzen looked at the scene being played in the crystal ball, and there was a hint of joy in his eyes. He then solemnly called out, "Umbu. Lord Hokage. Go and investigate Uchiha Tonen. Be careful to not let anyone notice you." Yes. On the training ground, Kakashi stood in the same place leisurely. He didn't initiate an attack again and lightly remarked, "Tonen, do you want to continue? Sharingan is indeed very powerful, but you seem to have exhausted your chakra." Tonen gasped for breath as if he was drained out of energy and gave a wry smile. He put away his kunai, placed his hands on the knees, and bowed to Kakashi. "I never thought that you were so strong, Kakashi. It seems I have to redouble my efforts if I want to catch up to you." Kakashi also put away his kunai, and the usual sleepy look reappeared on his face as he walked into the crowd. Although Tonen still had surplus energy, he had shown his potential value today. His goal was achieved. If he truly won against Kakashi, that would not show potential, but his strength. And it would be too doubtful if a recently awakened Sharingan's prowess was too intense. Losing miserably after exchanging a few moves with Kakashi was the best approach. Kakashi won, but Tonen also performed very well. Kakashi gets A+, Tonen gets A. You two, go to the tree shade and recuperate for a bit. Naoto had a smile on his face. He was visibly satisfied with these two students' performance. Kakashi was a publicly known genius in the village. There was no need to repeat anything about his potential. But as a teacher, Naoto always had a favorable impression of the courteous and studious Tonen. Now that Tonen had shown outstanding ninja talent, the more Naoto looked at him, the more he liked this student. Half an hour later, in the Hokage office, an Umbu's figure appeared in front of Hiruzen. "Lord Hokage, I have finished investigating Uchiha Tonen. I even went to his house to complete the investigation." "Was there anything unusual?" "There's nothing unusual about his life. He's a pure-blooded Uchiha. His parents are Uchiha Kotura and Uchiha Nanako. Both of them belonged to the Konoha police force, but not long ago, they volunteered to go to the front line. In Uchiha Tonen's house, I found many ninja books purchased from the bookstore. There were also books on previous Hokage's achievements by his bedside, and there was a book of Will of Fire signed by Lord Hokage on the living room table. I also found Uchiha Tonen's diary." After the report, the Umbu handed over Tonen's diary to Hiruzen. Chapter 7. Diary contributes, Meeting of Great Actors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 07. Diary contributes, Meeting of Great Actors. Sarutobi Hiruzen took the diary and opened it. The words instantly caught his attention so much so that he was unable to extricate himself. The will of fire was evident even to the naked eye. He noticed these entries were made during the end of the last semester. July 1st, Hiruzen clearly remembered that day. That was when he had gone to the ninja academy to lecture on the will of fire. He had spotted Tonen among the assembled students at the time. And he could recall even now how his expression changed from confusion in the beginning to sincere agreement by the end. He hadn't expected this kid to have such unique thoughts after listening to just one speech. Hiruzen himself hadn't thought this deeply. Judging from the diary's content, his status as the Hokage was higher than that of his parents and the clan. More than 90% of the diary was about his ideology and his ways. The mention of his parents or the clan was at best perfunctory. This child was only 6 years old, but he had already awakened the Sharingan. Considering he could exchange blows with Kakashi, albeit for a short time, indicated he was already a rare genius. As long as he is slightly nurtured, and I personally instill the will of fire occasionally, he can definitely become my confidant. When he grows up, maybe, even if I asked him to annihilate the Uchiha clan, he will not disobey. But if he has to become a person on my side, I must nurture and protect him properly. Even if Hiruzen had not realized it yet, in his heart, he had begun regarding Tonen as someone from his own people. This young fellow has what it takes to inherit the will of fire. Do you think he needs any help now? The Umbu was perceptive. On hearing this question, he understood that Hiruzen planned to nurture and draw Tonen to his side. He replied, "From my investigation, Uchiha Tonen's parents left him with adequate money when they went to the front lines. However, he seems to have spent most of it buying inessential books." The Umbu was referring to the ninja books stored in Tonen's cupboard. After that purchase, Tonen wouldn't have enough money left for maintaining daily expenses. I had checked the refrigerator in his house, and it only had vegetables and nothing else. If this goes on, he will very likely suffer from malnutrition, the Umbu added. Lacking money. Hiruzen started thinking. Tonen hadn't awakened the Sharingan earlier, and his ninjutsu and taijutsu ranked at the bottom. But he wanted to become stronger. It made sense for him to buy many ninja books. I'm afraid whether this young fellow has realized these books cannot improve his strength at all. It's like spending money to buy lessons. Since he is with me now, I cannot treat him unfairly. I could instead use this opportunity to narrow the distance between us. Rg Hiruzen was satisfied with this plan and returned the diary to the Umbu and said, "Good job, it seems you were attentive. Return this diary to that young fellow. Don't let other people notice that you had been there." Yes. In the next second, the Umbu disappeared. The next day, when Tonen was attending class, a teacher came in to call Yumano Naoto, who was giving a lecture, outside the classroom and said something. Naoto immediately returned and looked at Tonen. "Tonen, someone is looking for you in the office." Tonen nodded and got up. He left the classroom to follow the teacher outside. While walking through the corridor, Tonen had already guessed who would have called for him. He didn't know anyone other than schoolmates and clan members. It was unlikely a schoolmate would call him out like this, and clan members could wait until he returned home. The system had not notified him about his parents' death, so there was little chance that anyone was trying to reach him for an emergency. This left just one person, Sandame. "The person looking for you is inside." The teacher stopped in front of the office's door and gestured for Tonen to enter by himself. It was obvious that the person's status was high enough to even make the academy teacher guard the door. This reconfirmed that the person inside could only be Sandame. Tonen opened the door with an appropriately confused look. He saw Hiruzen sitting behind the desk, looking at him kindly. The confusion in Tonen's eyes dispersed, and his expression quickly changed into a pleasant surprise. He opened his mouth, but he was too excited to speak like he met his idol but was too nervous to take a step forward. He could only stand there in a daze. "Tonen, right. Come in and close the door." Hiruzen was very pleased with Tonen's reaction. Yes, Tonen hastily shut the door and nearly ran to Hiruzen. He then smiled while scratching his head. "No need to be so careful, child. Although I'm the Hokage, in my eyes, you are all like my children," Hiruzen reached out his hand and gently stroked Tonan's head, looking kind. Tonan narrowed his eyes in happiness as if he was being indulged by a close relative. I came to see you because I heard your parents have gone to the front line to fight and you are home alone. It must be tough on you. If you have any problems, you can tell me, Hiruzen spoke with concern like a neighborhood grandfather. Tonan looked at Hiruzen and put on a firm look, saying, Lord Hokage, it's not that difficult. It's not like you who works hard day and night for the villagers. Now that the war is so intense, you must be dealing with too much. You are so busy, and you still took time to care about me. Tonan choked back tears as he talked but immediately wiped his face with his sleeve, putting on a brave front. Good boy, you all are the future of Konoha. When the tree leaves dance, the fire will also grow endlessly. As long as you all grow up healthy, all my hard work will be worth it. After speaking, Hiruzen picked up an envelope on the table and stuffed it in Tonan's hand. I noticed you long ago. I also watched your fight against Kakashi. The Sharingan is truly powerful, but your physical constitution is weak. Use this money to buy something delicious to nourish your body. Training is taxing both mentally and physically. If you don't have enough money, you can always come and find me at the Hokage office. In any case, I don't have anywhere to spend my salary. It's just right to use it to nurture Konoha's next generation. Tonan looked at the envelope in his hand and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He looked like a child who was thinking about something delicious. But he shook his head and pushed back the envelope. No, Lord Hokage, you have worked so hard. You should buy more delicious food for yourself and nurture your body. If anything were to happen to you, Konoha will be ruined. I can find food by myself. Tonan's reaction satisfied Hiruzen even further. He put the envelope back in Tonan's hand and held it in his palms. Take it, child, Konoha still needs you all to inherit the will of fire. This time Tonan was in tears. He looked up at Hiruzen, his eyes filled with emotion, and said, Thank you, no one has ever been so nice to me. I will work hard to become an outstanding ninja and carry on the will of fire. I will implement Lord Hokage's ideology, and pledge my life to protect Konoha. Hiruzen smiled and nodded, very good, I'm looking forward to the moment when you become a ninja. Right now though, I want to hear your views on the will of fire. Chapter 8. Motionless, entering Hitaki household. You are listening at novel full.audio. Chapter 08. Motionless, entering Hitaki household. Just like that, Uchiha Tonan and Sarutobi Hiruzen spent an entire afternoon talking about nothing but the will of fire. For the most part, it was Tonan who did the talking and Hiruzen was the patient listener. In fact, Hiruzen didn't quite understand some parts of Tonan's view. But from what he had heard all afternoon, he could describe Tonan in two simple words, loyal official. Only when there were about 10 minutes left for school to be over, Hiruzen took the initiative to end the conversation. Tonan very reluctantly left the office. After returning home, he opened the envelope and looked at the money inside. This was more than what his parents left him. It was enough to elevate Tonan to a moderately rich person from borderline poverty. That was the benefit of standing on Hiruzen's side. Tonan looked at the money without showing any greed and put the envelope in the drawer. He then sat at his desk and began writing in his diary. I'm very happy today. Sandaime-sama personally came to see me in the teacher's office. He didn't have any arrogance. It made me feel like he is my biological grandfather. This meticulous care, just like his strong and wide palm, made me feel warm. At that time, I suddenly thought of a word. Restraint. I never knew what it meant to live in this world. But I understood it today. The meaning of my existence from here on is to follow in Sandaime-sama's footsteps. I recall a sentence I read in a ninja book. A ninja is an emotionless tool. But I'm a living being. It's impossible to be without emotion. However, if necessary, I'm willing to become the tool in his hands. 20,000 words omitted. Today, Sandaime.sama also gave me a lot of money. I had no money to buy meat for a long time. But I'm reluctant to spend this. After all, this is his hard-earned money. I'm planning to save this and use it to buy him a gift on February 8 next year, on his birthday. By the way, I also fought with Kakashi today. He truly is too strong. I have awakened the Sharingan, but I was still no match for him. I hope the gap between him and me is not too big. After writing the diary, Tonen left his desk and headed to the kitchen. Tonight's dinner menu was vegetables, again. The next day after school, Tonen didn't straight go back home but caught up with Kakashi, who was alone. Kakashi. Kakashi sluggishly turned around, looked at Tonen, and asked, "What do you want? Can I train with you? I want to become stronger to quickly become a ninja, please," Tonen requested and bowed deeply. Kakashi hesitated for a bit. Perhaps he felt that with Tonen's strength, he would be a good training partner, so he lightly nodded and said, "All right, where should we train?" Tonen replied with a bright smile, "We could go to your house. After all, I am the one requesting you to train with me. I wouldn't want you to go too far from your house because of me." Kakashi nodded and continued to slowly walk towards his house. Tonen silently followed behind. Soon, they arrived at Kakashi's house. There were not many people in the Hatake clan. The courtyard was big but the residential area was not too spacious. After all, only Kakashi and his father, White Fang, lived in this house. The wide open ground served as a good place for training, and the two boys headed right to it. They stood facing each other and made a hand sign, and with that, training began. Kunai collision sounds resounded in the open space. Both of them were already skilled to the point of perfection in taijutsu. Gradually, they did not limit themselves and began using the ninjutsu they already mastered. Kakashi was worth being called a genius. He had already mastered several types of ninjutsu. In comparison, Tonen knew just one, the Great Fireball technique. Soon, Tonen seized a suitable chance to surrender and concede defeat with the pretext that his chakra was depleted. "As expected of you, Kakashi, the gap between us has widened," Tonen pretended to be weak, placed both hands on the ground, and said while panting. Kakashi was also panting but he had some energy left. "L.C, you are much stronger than others." Tonen got up with difficulty, bowed to Kakashi, and said, "Thank you for training with me. I wonder if I can come again in the future." "Do as you like." Kakashi put his hands behind his head and the lazy look was back on his face. Tonen smiled, packed up his things, and waved his hand at Kakashi, then, "That's it for today. See you, Kakashi." After bidding goodbye, he left the Hatake household. Unfortunately, Sakumo was not at home today. However, Tonen was not in a hurry. Patience was the first requisite of a qualified hunter. When Tonen returned home, he found that the refrigerator was filled with meat and milk. This touched him so much that he hastily opened his diary and started writing. "There's so much meat and milk in the refrigerator. Needless to say, it must be Sandaime.sama who asked someone to stock up the food. In this world, there is only Sandaime.sama who treats me so well." 50,000 words omitted. By the way, today, at the academy, I heard Hyuga Sagata say that the front line was in a state of emergency. It seems that the enemies have cut off the supply lines of several battlefields. Sandaime.sama must be worried and anxious at this moment. I want to grow up quickly and share his burden. My parents too are among the people on the battlefields. I hope they can get through this difficult time. Time passed day by day. Perhaps, because the war had intensified, Sakumo never returned home. This was expected because he was a powerful ninja. He must be embroiled in several missions at this time. Some things become normal in people's eyes if done regularly. For now, Tonen just had to go to the Hatake household every day without being distracted or disturbed. It just so happened though that he discovered something. Kakashi was becoming stronger by the day. Now, even if Tonen went all out, he might not be able to win with certainty against Kakashi. In other words, Kakashi's strength had almost surpassed the dead Uchiha Tenno. One should know Tenno ranked 6th among graduates before his death. If the theory results were not counted, he might even rank higher. And Tenno hadn't even awakened the Sharingan at the time. With that, it could be said he would be on par with Uchiha Tetsuma. This meant Kakashi's current strength was among the very best even if placed in the graduating class. What a mind-blowing genius. Tonen sighed and took out a book titled Disguise Skill Essential for Spies from the cupboard. He wanted to utilize this current growth period to learn as much as he could. Chapter 9. Parents' Death, 3 Tomo Manifestation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 09. Parents' Death, 3 Tomo Manifestation. Notes. Taijutsu, physical techniques, and ninjutsu, ninja techniques, are of different kinds and levels. The Great Fireball Technique, Phoenix Sage Fire Technique, Phoenix Sage Nail Crimson Technique, Ground Travel, Body Flicker Technique are some of these kinds. Kiri is the hidden mist village in the Land of Water, one of the 5 great countries of the ninja world. The Uchihas, known for their fire techniques, are perfect opponents of the Kiri ninjas. Uchiha Tonen always took his reading very seriously. Every time he read, he repeatedly mulled over the book's content and integrated it into his mind as much as possible. Later that night, he had completed a third of the book he was reading on disguise skills. As his eyes felt a bit heavier, he decided to call it a night to not affect the next day's class. In the dark sky, the vagrant clouds had dispersed, letting the moonlight illuminate the Uchiha clan. Suddenly, Tonen's eyes shot open and he sat bolt upright. A powerful warm current appeared within his body and spread through each nerve, vein, and blood vessel. A large amount of ninjutsu knowledge filled up his mind. And as if he had used it over 1,000 times, it turned into instinct. His eyes had awakened the Sharingan and the Tomo spun rapidly. Gradually, the spinning Tomo stopped, changing from 1 to 2. A smile appeared on Tonen's face as he clenched his hands, feeling a Chunin's power. He raised his head and looked around using the Sharingan. Once he determined no one was monitoring him, he muttered to himself, finally dead. But I think only one of them died so far. This sense of security because of the increase in strength was fascinating. Tonen felt dissatisfied that only one of his parents had died. The other one should die too. I hope it will be a double kill tonight. Just when he was mercilessly thinking this, the warm current reappeared in his body. This time, it was stronger. It looked like earlier it was his mother, Uchiha Nanako, who had died, and now his father, Kotura, joined his wife in the afterlife. The Tomo in his Sharingan spun at such high speed that the afterimages connected to form a circle in the blood. Red eyes. 2 new ninjutsu were infused in his mind, and the ones that were instilled seemed to have leveled up like he had used them countless times. The Great Fireball Technique, Phoenix Sage Fire Technique, 3 Basic Taijutsu, Phoenix Sage Nail Crimson Technique, and even Lightning. Style Ninjutsu Ground Travel all felt innate to him. These were all ninjutsu that Tonen's parents, those 2 miserable Chunins, were adept in. Tonen also found himself well versed in confronting enemies as well as different tricks about traps, assassination, and so on. Soon, the spinning Tomo in his Sharingan stopped and finally became 3 Tomo. Now, in the Uchiha clan, other than the patriarch Uchiha Fugaku, the highest grade Sharingan was the 3 Tomo Sharingan. As for how to explain the sudden advancement to 3 Tomo, Tonen was not worried at all because he had the excuse down pat. If the excessive grief of losing both parents didn't result in the Sharingan's evolution, then what would? What a perfect reason. As soon as the sun rose the next day, he would be able to openly use 3 Tomo Sharingan in front of everyone. He had awakened 1 Tomo Sharingan with Uchiha Tenno's death, who had a relatively good relationship with him. Now, It was his parents' death. Tonen was satisfied overall. The only thing he was dissatisfied with was that the parents of this body were a bit too useless. Their ninjutsu could barely be called strong. Tonen's present strength could roughly compare to Special Jonin's. He was not a hasty person. Hence, he knew he could not be arrogant as he still needed to persist further. Kakashi had become a Jonin when he was just 12 years old. A mere Special Jonin was just a high-grade cannon fodder on the battlefield. Tonen narrowed his eyes, and the blood-red Sharingan returned to normal. He laid down again and finally drifted to sleep. Early the next morning, he headed to the Ninja Academy as usual. But before he could step inside, he was pulled aside by Yumino Naoto. A ninja wearing a cat mask was there as well. With a worried look, Naoto said, "Tonen, go to the Hokage residence with the Umbu. Hokage-sama has something important to tell you." Tonen looked excited and said, "Really? Hokage-sama wants to see me again." Naoto looked at the elated Tonen and a hint of grief flashed through his eyes. He tried to smile and said, "Yes, go ahead now. Let's go, don't keep Hokage-sama waiting for too long." The Umbu grabbed Tonen's arm and used body flicker technique to leave. Not much later, Tonen and the Umbu appeared outside the Hokage residence. Ednel.co, go in. The Umbu said just this much and once again used the body flicker technique to leave. Truly too elusive. Tonen pretended to be nervous. He shook his head a few times, took some deep breaths, and pushed open the door. His eyes immediately lit up when he saw Hiruzen sitting behind the desk. Like he was restraining his excitement, he said, "Hokage-sama. Come here Tonen, you have arrived." Hiruzen looked very sad as he greeted Tonen. The worries on his face were telling that something untoward had happened. As some say, when a dog meets a dog, it either barks or licks. When a person meets a person, he either cheats or puts on an act. It was obvious that Hiruzen was acting right now, and he was playing out a heartache scene. After distressingly informing Tonen about his parents' heroic demise on the battlefield, he would take advantage of the situation to sympathize with the heartbroken kid. Tonen was familiar with this trick. He had used it several times before crossing over to this world, but he only used it on women. To sum up, it was about taking advantage of others' sorrows. Looking very concerned, Tonen walked up to Hiruzen and asked, "Hokage-sama, what's wrong? Can I help you?" Hiruzen sighed and answered, "Tonen, I have got some news to tell you but you must mentally prepare for it." The blood drained from Tonen's face hearing this, and he stuttered, Could it be?" Hiruzen nodded and said, "Yes, a battle report came from the front line. The supply line of the battlefield where your parents were was cut off. Last night, they were surrounded by the Kiri ninjas, and both of them were killed in action." "No, it can't be," Tonen frantically shook his head. As if his legs gave out, he collapsed on the ground and used his hands to support himself from completely falling face down. "They are such strong ninjas, how can they die?" Tonen ferociously pounded the floor with his hands as teardrops fell on the floor. Hiruzen sighed and stood up from his seat. He walked towards Tonen, and slowly stretched out his hands, wanting to console him. But he stopped midway. He felt powerful chakra fluctuation within Tonen's small body. Could it be? A hint of pleasant surprise flashed through his eyes. According to legend, when Uchihas faced volatile emotional fluctuations, it would unlock the Sharingan. Tonen's present condition was consistent with this. If his Sharingan evolved, then the child's potential would be comparable to Kakashi. He was just 6 years old. Hiruzen retracted his hands and watched silently so that he did not interrupt the possibility of Tonen's Sharingan maturing. Some time passed, Tonen's head was still lowered and the floor below was full of tears. The chakra fluctuation emitting from his body gradually stabilized. Seeing that he had calmed down, Hiruzen used his hands to pat Tonen's back. Kotura and Nanako sacrificed their lives and Konoha will always remember them. You have to pull yourself together, and inherit their last wishes to protect the village. Hiruzen's consolation was effective. Tonen stopped crying. Wiping his tears, he slowly raised his head and looked at the Hokage. The child's face was tear-stained, enough to elicit anyone's sympathy, but the most striking thing was the scarlet Sharingan with 3 tomo spinning around the pupils. Chapter 10. Selecting Ninjutsu, Setting Up Illusion Domain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Notes: Genjutsu attacks a ninja's mind, creating illusions by controlling the chakra flow of the target's cerebral nervous system, affecting the 5 senses. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at Uchiha Tonen's 3 tomo Sharingan. On the surface, he looked sympathetic, but his heart was brimming with joy. He thought this kid was a heaven-sent tool for him. Tonen slowly stood up, and said, Hokage-sama, you don't need to worry about me. He took a deep breath, forced himself to smile, and continued, I have already pulled myself together. I will inherit my parents' last wishes and protect the village well. The war is still ongoing, and you must have much to deal with. If there is something I can do, please, do not hesitate to instruct me. Hiruzen smiled while nodding and said, it's fine as long as you can get over it. When I received the news, I was very worried you wouldn't be able to bear the blow. You are the future hope to protect the will of fire. After speaking, he comforted Tonen, gently patting his head. BDNV Tonen looked at Hiruzen, and as if he was trying his best to endure extreme grief, he tearfully said, Hokage-sama, rest for a few days. Don't treat yourself badly. Come to the Hokage residence any time you like if you need something, Hiruzen said with a benevolent look. Tonen nodded and turned to leave. To end the act perfectly, he looked back once every 3 steps, making Hiruzen feel very pleased. After Tonen left, Hiruzen returned to his seat. He blew out a mouthful of smoke, narrowed his eyes, and muttered, what a good sapling. He's more suitable to inherit the will of fire than Minato. Pity, he was born an Uchiha. We have lost on quite a few fronts. It's a bit troublesome. Should I change the frontline army? Hiruzen pondered. The troops resisting Kiri were almost entirely made up of Uchihas. The commander was the newly appointed patriarch, Uchiha Fugaku. It was well known that the Uchihas, who were good at fire-style and genjutsu, were the best suited to restrain them. After thinking for a while, Hiruzen discarded the plan to change the army. Let's observe the situation for now. Judging from the current state, these sporadic local wars are last-ditch counterattacks. The war will be over soon. Suddenly, the door was pushed open, and Shimura Danzo walked in with a cold look. Hiruzen, I heard a genius has appeared in the Uchiha clan, and he has already awakened the 3 tomo Sharingan. Hiruzen raised his eyebrows, slowly blew out smoke, and said, Danzo, don't take arbitrary action. Danzo said indifferently, the route has lost a lot of personnel and needs to be replenished. When Uchiha Tonen graduates, you should hand him over to me. Hiruzen shook his head and said, this child's character is not suitable for the route. Danzo snorted and said, Hiruzen, are you doubting my means of control? Whatever anyone says, he is from that vicious Uchiha clan. We should either strangle him in the cradle or firmly control him. Hiruzen was not convinced and said with a firm tone, Danzo, I have my own plan. You can choose personnel for the route from the other ninjas. This surprised Danzo a little. He hadn't expected Hiruzen to refuse him for a trifling genius with a 3 tomo Sharingan. Danzo's tone carried some dissatisfaction as he said, what sort of illusion did that little brat cast over you for you to protect him like this? Don't forget he is an Uchiha. Be careful of your attitude, I'm the Hokage. Hiruzen angrily slammed his hand on the table. Danzo knew Hiruzen well enough to hear the firmness in his voice. He did not want a conflict with him just for an undeveloped genius. He turned around and walked out, leaving behind some sharp words. You will regret it. A genius only represented potential, not a definite outcome of a powerhouse. Danzo didn't lack strong subordinates, and this was a mere Sharingan. Tonen returned to the Uchiha clan after he left the Hokage residence. Even before he could settle down, he was called to the ancestral hall. Tonen knew the Great Elder and the others would have found out about him unlocking the 3-Tomo Sharingan. This was the ninja world. There were spies of all sides, everywhere. Moreover, when he had walked out of the Hokage residence, he hadn't deactivated the 3-Tomo Sharingan. He wanted more people to know his Sharingan had already matured. This would increase his chances of gaining their acknowledgement. When Tonen arrived at the ancestral hall, the Great Elder was sitting Saiza-style behind the table and gestured him to sit down as well. Tonen nodded and took his place. The Great Elder opened a scroll that had many kinds of ninjutsu recorded on it. Tonen, I never thought you would give me such a pleasant surprise. At the age of 6, you awakened the 3-Tomo Sharingan. According to the clan rules, all clan members that can do this can choose 3 ninjutsu. Take a look and choose. If you want more, you need to be promoted to Genin, Chunin or Jonin, or render meritorious service to the clan. Tonen nodded and looked at the ninjutsu names. Most of them were fire style and lightning style. There were also many genjutsu. He had already inherited all abilities of his parents and Uchiha Tenno, including their experience and skills. Learning ninjutsu was not going to be a problem for him. The current him was not complete trash like when he had just crossed over to this world. Tonen browsed through the scroll and pointed out the 3 he wanted. The Great Elder pondered for a bit and lightly commented, lightning style, lightning needle, genjutsu. Hell viewing technique, genjutsu, mirror heaven and earth change. It seems you have the lightning attribute. But isn't one genjutsu enough? After all, Sharingan has its hypnotic eye genjutsu too. It is up to you. Are you sure of these choices? Tonen nodded. The Great Elder stood up, took out 3 scrolls from the back of the ancestral hall, and handed them over to Tonen. He earnestly said, your parents, unfortunately, died in battle. I understand your pain. If there is anything you need, you can tell us. Remember, we are one family. The clan will never treat you badly. Thank you, Great Elder. Tonen bowed deeply and left the ancestral hall. Looking at Tonen leaving, the Great Elder sighed. It was obvious the kid was not close to the Uchiha clan. That bow just now made the Great Elder feel his alienation from the clan members. Back at his house, Tonen opened the Hell viewing technique and mirror heaven and earth change. Hell viewing technique was an ordinary genjutsu. All Konoha Jonins who wanted to learn genjutsu had studied it. This genjutsu could make people sink into their greatest fears. Tonen chose this because he thought highly of this. It directly affected people's hearts. As for the mirror heaven and earth change, as long as the chakra and genjutsu level were greater than the opponent, it could reflect the other party's genjutsu, which worked well with Tonen's Sharingan. This jutsu could also share eyesight with the genjutsu target. Tonen planned to use this on his ninja beast, the white pigeon. This way, the lookout function of the white pigeon would enhance by several grades. Once I receive the death compensation, I should cultivate more white pigeon ninja beasts. With these 2 genjutsu, Tonen began to create his exclusive illusion domain according to what he learned at the Ninja Academy. Most people were learning existing genjutsu, which more or less had ready-made scenarios. They could alter it a bit at most, but others could still easily see through the illusion with just a few clues. If someone wanted to create an exclusive illusion domain, they needed to consume a huge amount of chakra. This may be difficult for some, but for Tonen, who inherited his parents' and his brother's chakra, it was enough. A good genjutsu should use methods in line with local scenarios. One must build an illusion domain in the mind first, then attack the enemy's 5 senses to make them believe in the illusion. Thinking of this, Tonen began to model the illusion domain according to his room.